We have. Cool, we're recording. So yeah, hey everyone. I invited Pelian, Derek, and Moritz here from AstroPy today based on the discussions we were having last week during the spring meeting about PyHC's own consideration of partnering with PyOpenSci and what all that would entail. And we all agreed it would be helpful to have someone from AstroPy come and chat with us about what that process was like, why they decided to go with a PyOpenSci review process instead of sticking with their own and such, and maybe what concerns or difficulties they faced along the way. So that's the premise of what's happening today. I don't know if you all have like slides or if you just want to talk or who wants to go first, but that's the scene setting sentence I'll give.
I don't think we have slides.
Good.
But I mean, we as we said, like we had our own process for at least 10 years, probably a little longer, like I think since 2011 or 2012 or so. And the original idea was to give packages like some type of vetting or review process and more advertisement in the community, because back then, I mean, GitHub existed, right? But people then as used or as comfortable as many are today to just pull some random code off the internet, essentially. And we also wanted to do some community building and tell people to use AstroPy data structures, for example, where possible, as opposed to having 15 different implementations of what an astronomical spectrum might look like that don't talk to each other. And so that was one way to have a look over people's code and say, hey, do you know that we have this base thing you could use as a base class? Our original process was modeled after what scientific journals do with a review, with an anonymous reviewer who writes a review report, and then an editor who looks over it and merges the two, so that as package author, you don't know which part was written by the editor and which part was written by the reviewer, because the editor is not anonymous, obviously. And we've done like, I don't know, maybe a handful of packages a year or so. We've always had the plan to re-review packages. So for example, we just recently, Pelian has been very good in cleaning up in her tenor. We've just recently removed the sentence that says like you should be Python 3 compatible in the next few years, because right that time has come over. But we've never gotten to re-review an actually unaffiliated package ever. Just that's more a question of we've always intended to do that, but we've never done that. And so in many respects, the PyOpenSci process is actually fairly similar to what ours was, except that the reviewers there are open. But apart from that, it wasn't that much of a leap.
Yeah, we did make some other updates, like minimum requirements for documentation, like a citation file that should have been added. And I think we tried to follow up. I do know we did push a certain subset of those affiliated packages to implement those minimum standards. Maybe need some further explanation. We have two circles of affiliated packages. One is the set of coordinated packages, which are actually hosted in the AstroPy GitHub repository and kind of officially maintained by AstroPy team members, because they also provide some crucial functionality back to AstroPy. So basically, many parts of AstroPy would not be working without these coordinated packages, but otherwise affiliated packages can be fairly independent. So you could say AstroPy does not really need them. So we asked all the coordinated packages to follow suit to the newer standards of documentation, citation files, and so on. That worked fairly well, I think. And I think at least we encourage all the existing affiliated packages, of course, and we have demanded it from all new proposals for affiliated packages then.
So to add to that, when I the main reason why I explored this partnership was I didn't think the model we had would be very sustainable because we were almost reaching 50 affiliated packages and the applications just keep coming in. And sometimes we get multiple in the short period of time, probably, usually close to maybe approaching the grad students graduating or something, and they just want something in the ecosystem being recorded there as they did the work or something like that. Like people have so many motivation why they wanted this affiliated status. And we only have 2 editors. We have, I don't know, our pool of reviewers was kind of like an ad hoc list, right? Like we have this person might be good in reviewing, but they actually have not promised us any time at all. So sometimes we also have problem finding reviewer, though Moritz might disagree on that. I guess it based on who you know. I'm not sure. And then there's also the problem of reviewing the packages to make sure that something we accepted 10 years ago is still qualified, if we want to reaccess based on the modern standards. So yeah, so I think those were my main 2 motivation personally why I pursue this partnership.
Really good to hear the reasoning behind that. I know Rebecca had a couple questions in the chat. She usually asks, does anyone else have questions first? Okay. Rebecca, would you like to go ahead and talk about the questions that you have there?
Okay. All right. So we had a discussion at the PyHC meeting on Thursday. I think I have my days right. And that 2-hour discussion was trying to figure out what's the purpose of PyHC? What do we want entrance to look like? And what might those various levels be and why? So I think this group would benefit from hearing from your group, AstroPy, your reasonings for the same thing. So I wrote them in the chat because I know it's going to get lost somewhere. So what's the motivation to have different levels of affiliations with AstroPy? Can you give examples of how the requirements differ? What benefits do the packages receive from the different levels? Those 3 to start with.
Do you mean coordinated versus affiliated?
Sure.
The difference
So
is
because
that. Oh, you go ahead, Derek.
Sorry, because I brought that up. Yeah, I just posted a link to the our page describing affiliated and coordinated packages. So the main motivation, I think that was that we want to ensure that in particular the coordinated packages remain stable and are continue to be developed and work with AstroPy. Because some, for example, provide crucial spectroscopic tools or photometry tools that are required by many users of the AstroPy core package.
Yeah. For the coordinated packages, the AstroPy community would pick up the slack if they got abandoned. Essentially, for an affiliated package, it would just die. Like that doesn't mean we wouldn't help or we wouldn't try to help, but we don't make any promises that we'll take over if whoever is the current maintainer stops. I mean, in some cases that may happen or maybe incorporated somewhere, but we don't explicitly promise that. Whereas for the coordinated package, we promise that they'll be as stable and as maintained by the community as the AstroPy core package. The fact that they're separate packages is more a question of packaging and infrastructure in the sense that they're more specialized. We don't want them in the core package for one reason or another, maybe because they're fastly developed or because they have more dependencies, and some of them may eventually become a submodule of AstroPy itself. but it's more a question about who owns the package essentially than. So as a user who writes their own package, you'll become an affiliated package. You'll never become a coordinated package essentially. That requires a strong community buy-in and not just an application.
From the maintenance side, they are usually also in the GitHub org, same as the core library. And when we do release, we usually cross-test between them. Not so much the affiliated, but definitely the coordinated. Yeah, so in the ape, I specifically left out coordinated because I really don't know when the core maintainers will have time to actually apply for the PyOpenSci membership for the coordinated. But we have like what 10, 15 packages, probably won't take that long. But I want to sort this out for the affiliated first, and then eventually I think the coordinated packages should also go through the same process. Because to me, in my mind, coordinator is like affiliated, but with stricter rules. So it should be better than affiliated, if not the same. But I haven't done that part yet, because that would lead to another round of debate in the community that I'm not ready to do yet.
Yes, I haven't thought of that much, admittedly, but I also think it's not really pressing at this point to get the coordinated packages accepted by PyOpenSci. Of course, we would like that, but it's not really important for the way they are working currently. The issue really would come up, I suppose, if we are getting an application for a new coordinated package. But as Moritz explained, that doesn't occur that easily. Usually, it's actually the other way around. We have recently done that we are asking some package or are discussing if we should elevate an affiliated package to the status of coordinated. But I think we don't expect anything new to come up very soon. If that happens, we will have to discuss how to handle the review within PyOpenSci process.
So I think one question that didn't get answered was the benefits. So I know Moritz, if I'm saying the name correctly, you mentioned that coordinated means that AstroPy is basically promising we will keep your package alive and working. That's why that number is kept down to a small few rather than the 40 or 50 affiliated. Are there other benefits for coordinated versus affiliated and affiliated versus nothing?
And for the affiliate versus nothing, I think it's mostly it originally was advertising. Right? Here's a list. And if people go and look for a list, here's a list, you can find some package that somebody else has looked at that follows some sort of standards that are fairly similar to what the core library has. And maybe not exactly the same, but fairly similar. There'll be testing, there'll be CI. And so somebody has checked that for you, so you don't have to go out and check your GitHub, all the GitHub repositories yourself. But of course, there are many large packages that are not affiliated. So it's to a certain degree, that's more an advantage for small packages. If a package has 2 maintainers, then you worry about it. But for example, the package that the Event Horizon Telescope uses is not affiliated or wasn't for a long time. And that collaboration has 1,000 members, including dozens of professional software engineers, and people in that collaboration are going to use that if it's affiliated or not. And nobody outside needs it because nobody outside has access to the data anyway. And so that's a package that I forget if we've affiliated it by now or not, but that's a package where that doesn't matter terribly much. It's more for smaller packages that do some important tasks so that somebody else can discover it and doesn't have to re-implement it, and the original also gets cited and credit. So it's like it saves the users work by making it more discoverable, and it gives the authors a way to get credit for that package to be used because it's found, as opposed to somebody writing it a second time.
In terms of maintenance, to elaborate what I said before, like if we have a breaking change in the next AstroPy release for coordinated, we would actually open pull requests to make sure the coordinated packages are compatible. And if needed, we also do the releases downstream for them. Affiliated, we will open an issue, say, hey, you should really do this, because they are already on our radar. And then the ones that are neither coordinator affiliated is really up to them to catch up to us, because I don't know who else is out there. If we can do a GitHub search and smoke them out, I would like batch open issues or something. But otherwise, if they break because they don't test against our dev nightly, then it's on them. So from a technical perspective, that's how I see they are different.
That's nice. Yeah, that's pretty clear. So just to summarize what I just heard in the last minute or two to make sure I got that right. With the affiliated packages, really the only main benefit is just the advertising they get from getting listed on the website, which is actually not too different from what we say at PyHC at the moment, where, hey, you get listed on the PyHC projects page, so there's advertising for you. But then you're saying with your coordinated packages, you go a step further, and when there's breaking changes with AstroPy Core about to be released or something, you'll actually open pull requests to fix the breaking changes rather than just opening issues in the affiliated ones. Is that a pretty good summary?
Is it? You can confirm, I'm not sure.
You can check with the AI bot if their summary said the same way, but yes.
I guess I'll go back and do that. Thank you. Oh, hey, Will, if you got your hand up, go for it.
Yeah, I just had a question, or kind of a question for clarification, maybe about the the benefits of this affiliate procedure, right? But I mean, it sounds like from the introduction about the AstroPy affiliated package systems that one of the benefits is some, maybe guarantee is a strong word, but some promise maybe of interoperability, right? I think, or as you mentioned, something about data containers for spectral data, for example, that not there's some sort of promise that each one of these affiliated packages is not re-implementing their own data container for storing some kind of common data format, right? Isn't that one of the benefits too of this ecosystem is ensuring that interoperability at some level?
That's the idea, although it's not absolute. And so there's certainly things where data structures are duplicated or capabilities of AstroPy aren't used in affiliated packages, sometimes for good reason, sometimes for historical reasons, because the people started the affiliated package before AstroPy had whatever structure they needed. Sometimes, yeah. It's not an absolute requirement to only use AstroPy data structures, but it's certainly strongly encouraged. And I think we have an application we've turned down because they didn't. But we've also have applications where the reviewer said, it'd be nice if you also use the AstroPy unit system. And I said, oh, well, but I don't want to. But okay, well, I guess then you don't.
Yeah, it's technically part of the requirements for checking for compatibility with our ecosystem. So
yeah, but within reason.
If a package uses completely independent unit system or system of quantities, that would definitely give negative points. But if on the whole we decide it's still positive, or as we used to call it, it's level orange, not red, we would still accept that package. But it's part of the promise we're trying to make also to the users, that they should be able to use objects and methods that they hopefully are already familiar with from AstroPy.
In terms of community, like Leah said in the chat, is for discovery, and Moritz also said the same thing. And also once they're accepted, it's like trying to build a community, not like among the scientists, but also the developers, because we have like an affiliated channel on the AstroPy Slack where if they want, they can exchange idea, although usually it's very quiet. Or if sometimes someone apply for affiliated status, we're like, oh, but this other package also kind of do almost the same thing. Have you talked to these other people? And then maybe I haven't seen it happen yet, but maybe they'll be like, hey, let's join forces because we are trying to solve that problem. So in the ideal world, we would want something like that instead of people developing their own thing to solve the same problem. They would actually work together. That's the Star Trek world that we envision.
We can all dream of that future. Maybe it'll
Yeah.
happen one day.
So for the packages that you have within your community, coordinated or otherwise, that eventually go through this PyOpenSci review process, what do you plan to do with them should they fail that review process? For whatever reason.
As layout in the 822 that I have linked earlier in the chat, and I can also give you the link again if you cannot find it later. So currently, before PyOpenSci, if they are rejected, that's it. It's done. But now with the PyOpenSci system, they can still be accepted into PyOpenSci, but they just won't have the extra AstroPy label on it. So it's not win or lose, they can still get something out of this whole thing. And they might still be accepted to JAWS if they choose to also go that route. So it's kind of like you don't really lose anymore with this new thing as long as your package pass the PyOpenSci checks. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, approximately. That was part of our discussion during our meeting last Thursday. That was one point of it, was we have, like, basically at the moment in PyHC, a listing of all the packages that we found or have found us in PyHC that are open source Python in heliophysics. And there was a question of what to do with packages that maybe aren't really very actively or well maintained anymore, or are just like not really used by the community at this point. Do we want to, just boot them from PyHC? Do we put them in a whole different like category within PyHC, that kind of thing? And it was one of the concerns that the community had brought up. So I was just curious how you all handled that kind of thing.
AstroPy has not solved that problem yet. I'm pretty sure a few of the 48 packages are probably abandoned. But in the 8, we did have kind of like a wish on what we want to do in terms of that problem as a future work. Like maybe Leah can clarify next, but she does have a plan to do the review, but using some sort of automated check.
We can, before that, we have always told people that they would be re-reviewed. So if somebody gets on the previous list or alumni list or whatever it's called, that's not a change from our old process. Like 12 years ago, we said packages will be re-reviewed and may not be listed as actively affiliated any longer. We've just never done that. But people always knew or could have known that that was our plan to do that. We just didn't get to it.
Some maintainers have volunteered to ask to have their packages removed from affiliated status because they said we're just not maintaining that anymore. Don't have the time, so we don't want to be listed any longer. Then, well, I think there are two levels of not fulfilling the newer standards at this point. So one are packages that have passed AstroPy requirements and maybe still would, but haven't gone through the PyOpenSci process, which is more or less all of them at this point. So right now the plan is to move those to our legacy list of affiliated packages where they may be for indefinite time. Then some of those, as mentioned, may no longer even satisfy our own AstroPy requirements. But yeah, we think we have a concrete plan what to do about those. We will try to re-review the legacy list of packages in PyOpenSci over time, and then maybe need to decide if it came out that they probably no longer satisfy even our own original affiliated packages, to remove them also from the legacy list, or just leave them there.
Sounds like you all are actually in a pretty similar boat with us.
Mhm.
Because yeah, we've also at one point, maybe 4-ish years ago, warned some people that if they didn't up their code quality to meet the standards, they might get warned that they'd be in danger of being removed from PyHC. And we haven't gone anywhere near that yet, because we decided it actually is pretty useful to keep a listing of like basically legacy packages that were there at one point or another. And I think that's the furthest along in any kind of like what to do about it scenario we've thought through, is basically just have a separate spot on the website for like archived or older unmaintained kind of things, just to move them into a separate box but still have them listed in the website.
Mhm.
But I heard you say kind of toward the end there that pretty much all of your packages at this point have gone through the PyOpenSci review process. So do you even really have any like, I don't know, delinquent or abandoned packages anymore?
Sorry, it's the other
No,
way
it's
around.
the opposite. Yeah,
None of our
none of the
packages
existing
have gone
packages
through
have done.
PyOpenSci yet.
Oh, like none of the, oh, okay, the opposite of that. Okay, I heard wrong.
There's
Yeah.
currently one package which
Just one.
was formally accepted for AstroPy just at this stage, and then directly moved on into the PyOpenSci review process. But that's currently still under review there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that makes more sense with the timeline, right? Because you all did your PyOpenSci stuff like not all that long ago. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, the idea of promising re-review is interesting, and I'm not sure. I mean, like Sean said, we kind of had this warning that we thought of at first for packages that, hey, if you don't meet these standards that we've set, which actually are based on your standards. So kudos to y'all for coming up with good ones. But if you don't meet these, you might be, booted from PyHC, but we've never actually gone through any kind of re-review partially, just, because of being unsure is that what we actually want to do. And also there's only so many Sean's in this room, and he only has so much time and already other things pulling on his time that need more attention. But yeah, I see that as something that would be a really cool benefit of the whole PyOpenSci partnership, is that they can help support in that aspect of working with packages more individually to try to meet standards than, we could do otherwise all on our own.
Yep.
I had seen there were a couple questions in the chat, and I don't know if people are reading it or not, so I just wanted to quickly point it out. Rebecca had asked, and it's already been answered, what will happen to packages that don't pass OpenSci, but they're already, AstroPy affiliated? And Peleon, you were saying that you plan to freeze the pre-PyOpenSci listing as legacy so that they'd always, be on that list. And then encouraging the existing to reapply for PyOpenSci is also in the plans, but you're currently working through the active applications first. So that's cool. And then Rebecca just asked another question. How is AstroPy planning on contributing reviewers to PyOpenSci?
Well, we have asked a couple of people. Sorry.
Go ahead.
We've asked a couple of people who had already volunteered or had agreed to be reviewer in our review system to also sign up, and some of them already did. And then I think Pelian posted a general invitation for all our team members to sign up there.
Derek and I are also going to be on PyOpenSci's editor list. So we are going to take those packages as editors, at least for in the beginning, that are AstroPy related or ask for AstroPy affiliation through PyOpenSci. And we are both astronomers and know the community, right? We are allowed to ask people to review packages that haven't signed up with PyOpenSci by themselves, just the way that journal editors can ask any random scientist for a review. And of course, those people can turn us down, but we can ask people from the community that we already know, even if they haven't signed up with PyOpenSci by themselves. So in that sense, we contribute by having 2 people on the PyOpenSci reviewer list who are in that editorial board and then find people. So it's Derek's and my jobs to find the people to a certain degree.
Rebecca, it seems like you might have a follow-up question.
Yes, I do. I want to hear what your opinion would be on this. How do you think it would be received if if one person from each of your coordinated packages was required to review one application for PyOpenSci / AstroPy per year?
I don't think that's practical. So in the past, when I was editor for AstroPy before, we only had one reviewer, and we've typically chosen that reviewer to be somebody who works in a similar science area. Let's say galaxies, a package that models the shape of galaxies in photometry is very different from a package that counts X-ray photons. And so that pool isn't necessarily the right people for the applications that we get, because we get like maybe we have 48 packages listed, and we've had the shop open for 12 years, right? So that's 3 per year. It's not a large number we need to deal with. Like when I was editor, nobody's ever turned me down whom I've asked.
Okay, great.
It wasn't like I know I'm the only one who doesn't. Maybe I asked the right people, or maybe I don't know. Maybe I was just lucky, or my emails are more threatening than what Pelian and Derek was to ask. But I've never had problems finding reviewers, because it's not actually, the number of reviewers we need isn't actually terribly high.
Okay, great.
Does anyone else on this call that's not Rebecca or Will or myself or Sean have questions? So yeah, looking to you, Nick, Darren, Bernie, Nabil, Sandy, etc. Want to make sure that your thoughts are captured as well if you have any.
Sure. So one thing I'm wondering about, like with Plasma Pi, possibly going through the process of aligning with PyOpenSci also, we're at a very different stage in the system as AstroPy and PyHC overall. So I'm like wondering about if it's worth the effort to do this for something that's a lot smaller scale.
I guess that's a question for Leah, right? I mean, on the AstroPy the main thing that AstroPy has on top of what PyOpenSci does anyway is that we are going to have a separate list on our website, which replaces the current list of affiliated packages to help people find it. So they don't have to go to PyOpenSci, which has a lot of packages that are not astronomy related, obviously. And again, like that's just, it's a filtering step. I mean, it's like they could go to GitHub or wherever they go and find the packages themselves. The next step would be to go to PyOpenSci yourself, because that's already a filtered list. And then like we filter it further by displaying it on the AstroPy website. So if the Plasma Pi community needs that or not is a question that you need to decide, right? If it's only 3 packages, it might not be worth the effort, and you could just mutually agree to list them here. list them on Plasma Pi or know about them in your email list anyway. This 48 is kind of, I mean, I know we're not going to have 48 on PyOpenSci anytime soon, but this 48 is kind of the point where at some point you want to structure a process.
Yeah, I think I could comment on Julie's question in the chat directly. I was going to say that's also probably something to ask Pei-Lian about, because she was driving the whole process on the Raspberry Pi side for a good deal of time, as she already mentioned. It took rather long in the end, almost a year or 9 months or so, to get it finally through, which I think partly is because AstroPi already has a rather well-evolved system of rules, how to parse new apes or how to modify existing apes. So a lot of things have to go through community review process and asking for rounds of comments. So I think that has made the process rather more drawn out and complicated than it might have been for a smaller project that doesn't have this body of fixed rules to follow.
If I discovered PyOpenSci many years ago, before we came up with our own thing, it would have saved us so much time. So if you're just starting out and you want to find something to start the affiliated process, but not to transition, but to start a new thing, I think just going in with PyOpenSci would be the right way to go. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you. That is all incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I
Leslie?
can add just,
Oh, sorry. No, before we go to you, Leslie. Yeah, go ahead.
I can be real quick, and Nick, and I'm happy to talk to you too, but I can just speak to when we worked with Pangeo, and the Pangeo partnership really didn't work out in the way that AstroPi is working out in terms of being more formal, but because Pangeo had like no existing process of peer review, but they had these lists of packages, like the actual process of onboarding was really fast and easy. But on the flip side of that, like it really hasn't continued in terms of like, because we don't have a direct point of contact and we haven't been in touch with that community, like the partnership kind of fizzled out, but the implementation was simple. And so with AstroPi, it was kind of the opposite of, you know, it was a lot of effort to get things going. And we were talking about the differences between our process and AstroPi's process. And I feel like Pei-Lian, you and I spent a lot of time going back and forth on documents and GitHub just to kind of align both communities and processes. And so that was like, I agree 1000% with what Derek said of like, that effort was really trying to take two slightly different processes and communities and aligning them. And that's what really took time. So I don't think there's a lot of overhead in my experience of like just getting started if you don't already have a process, because then we can just review things, and it's just a matter of, do you have specific checks for your community that we want to layer in to the process, and that can be figured out in a lot more, you know, flexible and quick way compared to, I think, what AstroPi went through.
Thank you again.
Leslie, go ahead.
So I think you've kind of been talking about this, but I'm still a bit confused about it. If you're an independent package developer, I wrote a package, it's useful for helophysics, some portion of the helophysics community. Is that useful to submit to, I guess, PyOpenSci? Or is it only as like part of is it only really intended as a management for these kind of larger conglomerates packages? Does that make sense as a question?
I think I follow that, Leslie, but you can
Okay.
correct me if I don't. I mean, anyone can submit to PyOpenSci. So we actually started with peer review, which was just completely open in the same way that JOS is. And that's still the case. Like that's still the majority of our packages. But I look at the partnership piece as just an additional layer that allows communities to kind of leverage and benefit from our processes, but then add that additional set of checks. So yeah, like you could submit to us today, tomorrow, anyone here could, and we could go through that process and you don't have to be affiliated with a specific community.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And just a random thought is like with more community joining this same sort of PyOpenSci world, it might even be possible for package to be affiliated with both PyHC and Plasma Pi and AstroPi, right? I mean, I don't know if there will be such a package, but it's definitely technically possible. Which would not be possible if we each of us choose to do our own affiliated process away from PyOpenSci.
But it'd be possible with a lot more effort, right? Because there'd be 3 separate review processes.
Oh yeah, how would that work if someone
As long as they're
apply
not
and
don't have
click all the
conflicting
boxes?
requirements.
It can be like one of those things that people like you win Tony and Oscar and all that, Emmy. Like it can be like that. Some people might want them all for their package.
Any other questions or thoughts from the crowd here?
Yeah, I guess just one thought and maybe potential question is, I mean, obviously the main thing happening with PyOpenSci is the peer review and keeping all of, I mean, the goal of peer review ultimately would be to keep all of these PyHC packages in our ecosystems up to more or less the same, quality, right? And since, but where am I trying to go with that? I guess I'd just be curious to ask if, I guess you only said one of your packages has only gone through the PyOpenSci review process at this point, so maybe you could only answer from the perspective of that one package, but did they find the code quality review like to be any more imposing than what it was before? Like, did they go through the review and get told, hey, you're actually failing the code review in this way because you're not doing this certain thing? And was it then difficult for them to like go fix that problem, or did it more or less come back out to like, okay, these are the same kinds of open science standards we've been shooting for anyway, and it just passed?
I think it's worthwhile to say that PyOpenSci is to a certain degree is more helpful than the AstroPi process was, because reviewers are allowed to be non-anonymous, and so they can just open issues or pull requests right in the reviewed package and say, hey, I think this is a problem, or possibly here's how you can fix it, depending on what the problem actually is. Whereas in AstroPi, we ask them to be anonymous. So we have a package that's still open where there is a request, and then the package didn't quite know what that request was supposed to mean, and the editor interpreted it, and it stalled. And I think PyOpenSci, now the same package hasn't applied to PyOpenSci, so I don't know exactly what would happen there. Right? But I don't think that's a problem, because if you're missing a citations file, somebody will just say, here's a citations file. You could just, or here's a code of conduct that you can look at as an example.
Yep. I guess maybe what I'm getting at is there seems to be a lot of like benefits for having PyOpenSci be the people to peer review your package and to kind of leverage all the infrastructure and the people that they have. And I've been searching for if there's any like downsides, if any package found the process too imposing or heavy-handed or anything like that. But so far, I haven't really heard any bad thing. I haven't heard any real reason why not to do it or move forward or anything like that. So
I think at least for AstroPi, it's not as different as you might think, because Derek and I are the AstroPi, or used to be the AstroPi affiliated package editors, and now we are the PyOpenSci editors that take care of your package, right? So you're still talking to the same people. If you're a package that's clearly AstroPi, you're still talking to the same people. It's not that PyOpenSci suddenly has another 100 astronomers that will magically do all that. Like Derek and I are still the editors you talk to, and we are still the ones who are going to find your reviewers. So it's not that, yeah, PyOpenSci doesn't magically make new people appear in the at least in the astronomy space, right? There's a larger pool when it goes about packaging, and there's a much more documentation that you can point people to than what we used to have in AstroPi. So that's helpful, but it's not magic.
gotcha.
Unless we can get this AI companion to work for us.
Yeah.
My worry personally is for transition, not if you're starting from scratch, but the transition is like, what if we just accepted a package without PyOpenSci just a few months ago, and now we say, hey, you have to apply again under this thing. I haven't figured out yet. Maybe you can ask us next year how that turned out. We still have to figure that part out.
No,
And
definitely.
also, if we are all in PyOpenSci together, then maybe I can get, like, I don't know, Nabil or Nick Murphy to also help review the AstroPi stuff. Maybe you can help each other out, you know.
We could. But yeah, I do think, just to directly bounce off the last thing you said there, though, is that we probably won't get to a point with at least not anytime soon. I don't see us getting to a point in PyHC where a package would have to pass PyOpenSci review to just join PyHC, because we probably will always have a more entry-level tier that's just like, hi, I'm a Python package for heliophysics, let me in, please. But it will have other benefits to offer to packages who take the time to, bring up all their code standards to meet PyOpenSci review and things like that.
And there is a lot of time in between anyway. So we have the 48 affiliated packages, which we eventually would like to go through PyOpenSci process. But if we get 4 new packages a year, and we don't want to do more than, 3 packages per editor per year, that means we go through 2 of those 48 per year, and we're going to start with the oldest 2 ones. So those packages have around 16 years until it's their turn to be re-reviewed, which isn't entirely unreasonable. And by that point, we are in Python 5.8 anyway, right? So it's not that a package that was accepted half a year ago is forced to be re-reviewed next week. And they can always say no and just stay on the AstroPi legacy list anyway. It's not. So there's no, we don't have any, we are not going to remove that. We're not going to force anybody to go through another review process they don't want to. In fact, it's probably the bottleneck is the other way around. Packages may want to be re-reviewed, and we'll tell them to wait a little.
Yep.
Also, another thing I like about PyOpenSci is in case you have the same situation, but this situation never came up. It came up in my head, but it hasn't come out in reality. It's like someone that you don't want to burn bridge with, try to apply for affiliated status, but their package is totally not gonna qualify, but you feel bad or you don't feel comfortable saying no, that kind of situation hasn't happened yet. But given enough time, I'm sure statistically it's non-zero. PyOpenSci being a neutral ground is a better way. It's like, hey, all these other community use the same set of rules and yours just don't pass them. It's better than they accuse you of rigging the rules so that they don't pass because you control the whole process. So, in this fictional situation, PyOpenSci definitely is a pro.
Yeah, that's nice from a politics standpoint. I agree.
All right. Well, we're less than a minute from the top of the hour. So I want to thank Pilian, Derek, and Moritz from AstroPi again for coming and chatting with us, and Leia, of course, for dropping in, giving the PyOpenSci perspective. It sounds like we still have conversations on the PyHC end to go forward with. But I think this has all been very helpful in talking through. Yeah, helpful. Talking through how we want our particular partnership to work and to look like. So thank you for your time. And I have, for the rest of the PyHC folks here, another Telecon slot for 2 weeks from now. Topic TBD, but perhaps we should use that to discuss some of this further, / perhaps like better define our tiering system that we might want to do, which I think might help us honestly answer some of these questions about affiliation and moving forward. So thanks all, and see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for having us. It was a very interesting discussion, I think, our side as well.
I'm glad
Bye,
you got
everyone.
okay. Well, it is
Cool.
like pulling teeth for some of these people, trying to get them to agree.
It is, but I feel like that was at
I
least a
think
little bit more of a lively discussion than when we brought it up during the summer school.
the spring meeting.
Oh, did I say summer school? Yeah, I definitely did.
All good. I was like, did we talk about this at the last summer school? I don't
No.
even know what to do about it.
But hey, at the very least, good news is like the idea is starting to solidify more in my own mind, even if it's nebulous in other people's. So I at least feel good for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think understanding like how this tiering system will work in my mind can kind of intimately connect with how the PyOpenSci thing plays in, because I think a lot of people are afraid we're looking for like super strict requirements for, this process. And then what happens if like they fail or they haven't gone through this review or these other things. And I think understanding that we're not trying to like exile packages necessarily.
No, exactly. And I'm sure that's exactly the worry for people, and what keeps most people quiet is probably the people who are saying, all right, I run a package. I know there's some shortcomings in my code quality, but I'm happy with the quality of this now. So I don't want anyone else coming in and giving me extra work, telling me I have to go fix all these style problems in my Python, or I have to add all these brand new files to like do metadata crap. I don't know. It just sounds like more work for people. So the questions I've been asking in like the spring meeting and during this one today was like, what are the downsides of partnering with PyOpenSci? And like I pointed out, there really aren't any. Like if you don't want your package to get peer reviewed by PyOpenSci, then you just don't do that. No one's going to force any extra work on you.
Yeah. True.
I think the question really is just double checking that it'd probably be good for us to sit down and go through and look again at